Well, after creating the mountain scenes with plaster cloth and a coating of hydrocoll, it's time to bring the mountains to life by giving them some color. And we're going to do that by using the Woodland Scenics Earth Undercoat. And we're going to mix it in a container with some water. Now, how much water you add to the undercoat itself depends on the shade of the color that you're looking for. In this case, I'm using about 60% water and 40% of the Earth Undercoat. And you just mix them up together, use a little sponge brush, and we're going to sponge that right onto the mountains. And you can see it kind of really transforms them. Before they just kind of look like you're in the Antarctic, and now you've got these mountains really coming to life. So I've done that with the vast majority of the mountain scenes. And to create the water features, I have to first cut out the styrofoam base. So that's what you see me doing here, cutting out the styrofoam base for the waterfall lake. And in the background, you can see I've already done that with Whispering Creek. Now, the next thing, after you've cut it all out of the styrofoam, you have to smooth it all out because you want generally a pretty level space to lay the plaster cloth on when you seal this up. And then, of course, once you do that, you have a whole lot of particles that are all over the place. You're going to need to vacuum that up, get all those particles off the track and the water feature itself. And then we'll add the plaster cloth. And then on top of that, once that dries, we'll add the hydrocoll again to seal it up. And here you see the finished product of the leveling of the styrofoam for both the waterfall lake, and then here is the cutout for what's going to be Whispering Creek. And we have the Golden Pond on the other side coming up a little bit later. Well, since that time, I've already laid down the plaster cloth. I've let that dry. I've added the hydrocoll. I've let that dry. And so now what you have is a very realistic looking lake bed and riverbed. Once all that has dried, then the next step is to add some scenic water to these areas and start building them up. Now you're going to notice before I added the water, when I started the Whispering Creek part of this project, I actually did some of the landscaping. For Whispering Creek, I'm adding this deep pour water from Woodland Scenics because it is so realistic. You can see I've already done a lot of the landscaping, putting in trees, things like that. But in the water feature itself, I've already added rock and logs and things like that that you typically see in a creek scene. It looks a little murky right now only because I just poured it and it has yet to dry. It takes about 24 hours for it to cure. And you're going to see what that looks like here next. Our 24 hours is up, and as you can see, it looks very realistic. It gives when you get up really close to it, it's almost as if you're standing on a mountain looking down to the stream. You can see all the rocks and the logs that are semi-submerged in the water. A great look, but there was one extra thing I wanted to do to give it a very realistic look, and that was to add ripples in the water to give the impression of wind blowing across the water. So I'm using Woodland Scenics water ripples to do that. It's a very heavy gel that you brush on with a thick brush, and you just dab it all over the top of the dried water scene. And when that cures after about 24 hours, you get what you see here. A very realistic looking water scene, if I do say so myself. This is a great product, and there's nothing like it out there on the market, I don't think, for realism. So I'm very pleased with how this has turned out. And our Whispering Creek now is, all the water feature is done, and it's well on its way to being completed. What's next for Whispering Creek is to add the other side of the creek with trees and some small buildings, maybe some shacks, people out fishing, things like that. You're going to see that in the next video where I have that completed, or at least that's the plan right now. Well, now it's time to move on from Whispering Creek over to the Golden Pond and the forest scene. And what you're seeing here are a bunch of trees that I've staged. I bought these trees at a local train show that's here in Wheaton, Illinois, about once a month. And I got a great deal on these very realistic looking trees. Again, they're all used, but you can clean them up and they really look great. Now for the Golden Pond scene, I'm going to start by laying out a basic layer of realistic water. That's a different product than deep pour. Later I'm going to be adding deep pour to this. So here's Golden Pond. You can see I've had the opportunity now to do some of the landscaping. I have some of the trees in. I have a wood cabin that's going to light up. Actually, two cabins. The one that I'm zooming in on now is one that I just purchased from Woodland Scenics. I've got the lake that I'm still working on. I'll be adding the deep pour water to that later, but I have all the base acrylic work done and the painting done. The old American flag, you got to have that if you've got a cabin in the woods. And then I'm starting to add little scenes. One of the first ones I put up is simply a camping scene. You got some campers there and a hiker. And I've added a little hiking trail that works its way all the way through the forest. And little things like that. So this is the beginning of this. I'm adding a lot of light features to this. That cabin is going to be lit up. The cabin in the foreground lights up. There's the flag is going to be lit up. I'm going to have some lights back here in the trees. So at night, when you cut off all the lights and you turn on all these little accent lights that I'm putting on, it's going to look pretty neat. Well, there you have it. That's the latest for the progress on Whispering Creek and Golden Pond Forest. And in the next video, you're going to see what will probably be the completion of both of those areas. And you get a chance to look at that, as well as other areas that I'll be working on. In fact, the farm scene is the next scene that I'll be completing after these two. So maybe we'll have that in the next video. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again soon.